A new NPR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime. For more on that and the surrounding fallout, we're joined now by Julie K. Brown, investigative reporter for the Miami Herald, whose reporting helped expose much of the Epstein network. Julie, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
I want to start with this NPR reporting that the Justice Department withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor, which we should say the White House denies. What stands out to you about it?
Well, I think what stands out is that we don't have the reports, even though we know they exist. This stems from an interview that they conducted that came out of a tip to the FBI about this woman who has said that when she was 13, that she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Trump Mana Empire. Do you remember when Trump stood on those stages and roared about draining the swamp? Do you remember when he looked straight into the camera and swore that he would tear down the deep state, drag the elites into the light, and deliver real justice to the victims of the most powerful predators in this country? Hold on to that memory, because what is unfolding right now is the complete and total collapse of every single one of those promises.
I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files
I'm reclaiming my time.
be
I got your
released.
answer. You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please
that
stop the
he
clock.
sign
Stop the clock.
the legislation. This is
I'd like to take my
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center.
Because right now, his personally selected Attorney General is getting annihilated in federal court, doing the exact opposite of what Trump pledged. She is not exposing the powerful. She is throwing a wall around them. Pam Bondi is not just losing. She is being dismantled on a national stage, in public, on the record, with no escape route. Federal judges are tearing her arguments to pieces.
Grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked.
Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are shredding her in open hearings. Legal minds across the country are calling her court filings careless, incompetent, and potentially criminal. And the cumulative wreckage of all of it is making Trump look like precisely what he spent years insisting he was not. Just another corrupt operator shielding his wealthy and connected friends from the consequences they deserve. This is the Jeffrey Epstein file scandal, and it is not simmering anymore. It is detonating directly, personally, and catastrophically in Trump's face. Here's what makes this story so staggering. Back in December, something occurred in Washington that almost never happens in today's political climate. Members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats together, sent Pam Bondi a formal letter. Not a polite request, not a gentle nudge, a hard, unambiguous demand. They reminded her that Congress had already passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, actual binding law, not a suggestion, not an aspiration, which states in plain language that these documents must be released to the public in full. And Bondi's answer to that legal mandate? Silence. Then more silence. Then a cascade of excuses. Then deliberate delays. Then the absurd claim that millions of pages were simply duplicative and therefore didn't need to see daylight. And then, and this is where it crosses from incompetence into something far darker, botched redactions that ripped the privacy away from Epstein's victims while continuing to shield the identities of his powerful associates and alleged co-conspirators. Sit with that for a moment. The Attorney General of the United States had one fundamental obligation: protect the victims and expose the perpetrators. She inverted it completely. The victims got burned, the predators got cover. That is not a bureaucratic fumble. That is a deliberate decision with real human consequences. And now she is paying for that decision in courtroom after courtroom. When Bondi finally released documents in February 2026, the result was catastrophic. Redactions so heavy that entire pages were rendered meaningless. Names that the law requires to be made public, buried. Investigative threads that could crack open further prosecutions, severed. But the most grotesque part? While she was burying the names of powerful men, her team simultaneously left the personal details of Epstein's survivors fully exposed and visible for anyone to find. France 24 covered it. Their names, their private information, details that should have been locked away forever, sitting in plain sight. Because Bondi's team couldn't execute a basic document review without causing harm to the very people the law was designed to protect. The result is a situation that should be impossible. A Justice Department that is simultaneously covering for predators and injuring victims. The House Judiciary Democrats held nothing back. Their official statement called Bondi unhinged and accused her of executing a grotesque cover-up in defense of sexual predators. Those are not the words of opposition bloggers. Those are the formal, on-record statements of elected members of Congress who have reviewed the evidence firsthand. And here is where Bondi's legal standing becomes genuinely catastrophic. Federal judges are not accepting her justifications. They are demanding to see the actual withheld documents. They are placing what has been released side by side with what is still being concealed, and what they are finding is not sitting well, because judges are not political operatives. They read statutes. They understand what the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires, and it does not contain a carve-out for documents that might create discomfort for powerful people. It does not say release whatever is convenient. It says release everything. So when Bondi walks into a federal courtroom armed with flimsy reasoning and paperwork that legal analysts are calling sloppy, judges are not moved. They are rejecting her positions. They are compelling the DOJ to produce more. They are applying direct judicial pressure in full public view. This is what it looks like when the rule of law refuses to bend. Bondi is not winning these confrontations. She is losing them repeatedly, visibly, and in ways that generate new damaging headlines every single time. And Trump is not taking it quietly. Recall that in September, Fox News reported Trump was actively pressuring Bondi to pursue prosecutions of his political adversaries. He put it on social media, then deleted it, writing that they were all guilty and demanding immediate action. In that same post, he complained that the delays were destroying his credibility. That tells you everything you need to know about how Trump processes the Justice Department. It exists to make him look strong. It exists to punish enemies. And when it fails at that, when it becomes the source of his embarrassment instead, he seethes. Multiple credible reports confirm Trump is privately furious that Bondi is turning his administration into a symbol of corruption and legal incompetence. Because that is the unavoidable verdict being written in real time. Every court loss, every evasive hearing answer, every revelation about botched redactions and protected predators, all of it feeds a single narrative. Trump's Department of Justice is either deliberately running a protection operation for the well-connected, or it is too incompetent to handle basic legal obligations. There is no third option, and neither option is defensible. This does not exist in a vacuum. Across the board, federal courts are pushing back on Trump administration conduct. Immigration enforcement actions blocked, attempts to suppress protest rights curtailed, efforts to weaponize federal agencies put under the microscope. And now, Epstein cover-up attempts rejected outright. Legal observers are documenting the pattern with growing alarm. When Trump's team is forced out of the arena of press releases and executive orders and into actual courtrooms where evidence must be presented and law must be followed, they lose. Consistently. Repeatedly. Without exception. That is the devastating core of the Bondi catastrophe. It is not one isolated legal setback. It is proof of a systemic failure. Trump campaigned as a force of nature who delivers results, who crushes the elite, who fights for ordinary Americans against a rigged system. But his own Attorney General cannot manage a document release without violating the law, harming survivors, and getting slapped down by judge after judge after judge. The human dimension of this is unbearable to look at directly. Survivors of Epstein's abuse are sitting in congressional chambers watching Bondi refuse to meet their eyes. They are watching her sidestep every pointed question about why certain names remain hidden. They are watching her insist that full disclosure has occurred while journalists hold physical documents proving the opposite. They are watching her hide behind procedural language while federal judges and members of Congress look her in the face and say, "Not good enough. Try again. You are not above this law." This is not how a functioning Justice Department operates. This is not how public trust in law enforcement is maintained. This is precisely how that trust is obliterated, slowly, methodically, and in full view of a watching public. And here is the ugliest truth that hangs over every one of Bondi's decisions. Every delay, every over-redaction, every claim of duplication, every botched release that wounds victims while armoring perpetrators, all of it converges on a single, inescapable conclusion. There are specific names in those files that this administration has decided must never reach the public. When you examine who shared Trump's orbit during the Epstein years, his social world, his events, his documented associations, when you see his name surfacing thousands of times across Epstein-related materials, the ferocity of DOJ resistance stops being a mystery. This is not about protecting national security. This is not about preserving the integrity of ongoing investigations. This is about keeping powerful people, and possibly the most powerful person of all, out of the light. What comes next is not in doubt. The courts will continue pressing. Congress will not relent. Documents will eventually surface whether this administration cooperates or not. The only variable is how much damage accumulates before that happens. Because every single day this drags forward, every new hearing, every new court filing, every new story about DOJ failure, it embeds the Epstein scandal deeper into the public consciousness. It sustains the question that Trump cannot afford to have asked. Why is your Attorney General fighting this hard to keep these names buried? Politically, the damage is compounding. Trump has positioned himself as the law and order candidate, the man who protects children, dismantles corruption, and holds predators to account. But his own Justice Department is actively obstructing accountability in the single most significant child sex trafficking case in modern American history. The contradiction is not subtle. It is not something that requires investigation to uncover. It is sitting on the surface, visible to everyone, including people who voted for him. Bondi's legal situation right now is as precarious as it gets. Bipartisan congressional pressure demanding answers. Federal judges dismantling her arguments one by one. Legal experts publicly questioning whether her conduct crosses into illegal territory. Survivor advocacy organizations demanding her resignation. And a president who holds her responsible for making him look like exactly what he promised he wasn't. That is not a sustainable position. At some point, a line gets crossed. Contempt of court becomes a genuine possibility. Congressional referrals move from threat to reality, and calls for impeachment shift from fringe to mainstream. And here is the trap that closes around Trump from both directions. He cannot remove Bondi without broadcasting that he is running a cover-up. But he cannot stand beside her without absorbing every piece of damage her failures generate. He is pinned, watching the wreckage accumulate, unable to stop it without accelerating it. This is what happens when you construct an administration on the foundation of loyalty rather than capability. Trump wanted an attorney general who would obey, protect, and never waver. He got that. What he did not get was someone with the legal depth, institutional credibility, or professional competence to withstand genuine scrutiny. Loyalty performs well in friendly environments. It collapses in federal courtrooms. It means nothing to a judge reading a statute. The question this entire episode forces into the open is fundamental. Does anyone inside Trump's power structure actually believe the law applies to them? Or do they treat it as a weapon to deploy against opponents and a nuisance to ignore when it becomes inconvenient? Because the answer being written in real time is the second one. The law says release the files. Bondi says she will decide what gets released on her own schedule. The law says protect victim privacy. Bondi's team exposes it while hiding perpetrator identities. The law says documents cannot be withheld for political cover. Bondi does it anyway. At a certain point, the question of whether this is incompetence or intention stops mattering. The effect is the same. A Justice Department that functions as a personal protection apparatus for the president and his network is not a Justice Department. It is an instrument of authoritarianism wearing institutional clothing. Trump made his promises loudly and in public: drain the swamp, expose the corrupt, deliver justice for victims. But when the moment arrived, when the documents were in his control, when the authority was his to direct, when the choice was expose or conceal, his administration chose concealment, and the courts and Congress refused to allow it. Bondi is losing. Trump's standing is eroding. The administration is hemorrhaging credibility. And the Epstein scandal, in which Trump's team calculated would fade, would be managed, would be buried under enough procedural obstruction, is louder now than it has ever been. The lesson is permanent and it is merciless. You cannot build a political identity on law and order and then run interference for criminals when they are your criminals. You cannot promise transparency and then fight in open court to keep the darkness intact. You cannot claim ownership of victims' pain and then expose their identities while protecting the men who hurt them. The hypocrisy does not stay hidden. It surfaces, it compounds, and eventually it buries you. That moment is arriving. The courts are not standing down. Congress is not walking away. Journalists are still pulling on every thread. Survivors are still in the room, still speaking, still watching the government fail them in new ways. The story is not dying. It is growing. Trump is furious because the narrative is no longer his to control. Bondi is humiliated because the law is not bending to accommodate her. And the American public is watching every moment of it unfold with complete clarity. The man who promised to drain the swamp installed his loyalists to guard it instead. And the swamp, his swamp, is now pulling them under. The files are coming. The names are coming. And there is nothing left in Trump's arsenal that can stop either one.